Hi, I'm John Davis, and this is MotorWeek. We're raking up all the changes made to the new Nissan Leaf. Stephanie Hart details the tech making driving more accessible to those in need. Logan McCombs eases us into DIY brake work on your drive. And we'll soldier on with a British Tommy, the Land Rover Defender 110. So come drive with us next.
MotorWeek, 45 years steering you in the right direction.
MotorWeek is proudly sponsored by Auto Value and Bumper to Bumper, a nationwide network of stores and shops providing major brand auto and truck parts and service from coast to coast and in your local community. Service is the difference. We get it. Learn more at autovalue.com and bumpertobumper.com.
We're Tire Rack. We test tires and share our results. We stock over 1 million tires. We offer multiple installation options. We do this because we believe tires matter. TireRack.com.
While Tesla gets the credit for making EVs popular for a wide swath of buyers, it was Nissan's Leaf that truly brought battery electrics mainstream way back in 2011. Well, after soldiering through the past 14 years with occasional minor updates, an all-new Leaf is finally dropping. So let's see if this reimagined Leaf will rake in a lot more buyers for Nissan. "15 years ago, when the Nissan Leaf first hit the streets, an overwhelming majority of Americans were still highly skeptical of EVs. That Leaf was a big part of changing many people's opinions on EVs, leading to an onslaught of new battery electric vehicles over the last decade, which by and large left the Leaf behind. Well, the 2026 Nissan Leaf intends to move it out of the outdated category and back into the trend-setting class. Technically, this is the third generation Leaf, as second gen was more of a tech upgrade without much change to its SUV-adjacent hatchback vibe. There's a much bigger departure here, going coupe-style SUV now. And though more dynamic in appearance, flush-mounted door handles, purposeful fender sculpting, and the rear spoiler shape all work to make it even more aero-efficient than last gen. There's plenty of new LED lighting integrated too, including full-width running lamp, illuminated logos, and stacked rectangular taillights that make a play on 2-3, or Nissan in Japanese. There's a definite presence of tech inside, but it's not overdone. All information is displayed on a pair of 14.3-inch screens linked up by a single housing. There's a row of controls integrated into the dash just below the infotainment touchscreen, and more manual controls below that for the radio, gear selection, and drive modes. Available features you wouldn't expect to see at this price point include Bose speakers integrated into the headrest and a panoramic roof that adjusts transparency with the touch of a button. Despite its SUV stance, the Leaf is actually shorter than before, but up front it remains spacious feeling thanks to a flat floor and slimmed down center console. The front seat backs have also been reshaped to provide a little more rear seat legroom. But the space back here is still not quite up to handling adults for extended drives. It loses some cargo space in back too, falling from 23.6 cubic feet to 20. Max cargo is up, however, to 55.5 cubic feet. Divide and hide gives you an underfloor area for stashing items, or it can be lowered for maximum space. The Leaf remains front-wheel drive only, and for now 3 trim levels are available, all sporting a single 160-kilowatt motor rated at 214 horsepower and 261 pound-feet of torque. A sub-$30,000 base S version with a lesser 130-kilowatt motor and smaller battery is slated to arrive at an unannounced future date. Range from the 75 kilowatt-hour battery is rated as high as 303 miles, which is great for the segment and price. Though our top Platinum Plus with its 19-inch wheels is rated for just 259, and we were on pace for only 196 miles in our driving loop. A NACS charging port is included, and Nissan's Energy Charge network works through the My Nissan app to give you real-time charging station status as well as payment management. 150 kilowatt max DC fast charging gets to 80% in 35 minutes. Like an 80s economy car, the Leaf can be surprisingly fun to drive at times, even in a track environment like our handling course. In sport mode, the car tucked in through the cones nicely with lots of grip and less body roll than expected. Steering was firm but quick with good amounts of feedback. The acceleration experience feels mostly like before, not overly aggressive like many EVs, more relaxed and traditional as power arrived gradually on the way to 60 in a reasonable 7.1 seconds. Momentum seemed to build continually most of the way down the track until we cleared the quarter mile in 15.5 seconds at 92 miles per hour. There was some subtle EV motor humming, but most of the soundtrack was made up of a bit of wind and tire noise. In panic braking runs, the brake pedal was soft, giving us little to no feedback, and we even experienced some minor lockup as we came to a stop. Still, numbers were good, with stops averaging 111 feet from 60. Also good is the Leaf's efficiency rating, using 33 kilowatt-hour of electricity per 100 miles. The Leaf's trim structure now falls more in line with the rest of the Nissan lineup, so it's hard to make direct comparisons to the previous gen. But pricing is very similar, starting at just $31,485. While some brands are just getting around to bringing out their first BEVs, this 2026 Nissan Leaf arrives with more than 15 years of experience, along with a much more modern design, improved tech, and more range, all looking to take it from forerunner to smartly priced frontrunner. More than 18,000 wheelchair-accessible vehicles were sold in the U.S. in 2024. They allow those with disabilities the independence of the open road that the rest of us take for granted. And as Stephanie Hart now reports, improved technology makes driving easier and more enjoyable for those that use these vehicles than ever before.
For most of us, getting into a car is second nature, but for those who drive adapted vehicles like this one, there's much more to consider. Still, advances in technology have come a long way compared to, let's say, 30 years ago, and they keep getting better, providing independence for those who rely on these vehicles.
I was diagnosed with this condition when I was about 16 years old, and it's progressively degenerative until I started using a power wheelchair at the age of 52.
Now, 10 years later, physical therapy keeps Mike Huddleston strong. Driving to and from appointments, he's grateful for his adaptive vehicle, which has enhanced his quality of life.
To drive, I have a locking mechanism. It's called a Q-lock, and I have a pin installed underneath my wheelchair. I just pull in, lock, put the seatbelt on, and go.
How has this made your life overall easier?
If I need to get up and go somewhere, I get up and go somewhere. So I think that's 90% of it, if not more, is just having the ability to do what I need to do when I need to do it without having to rely on other people. I use what is called a push and rock system. You push for the brakes and rock back for the accelerator. That's controlled with my left hand, and I steer with the right hand.
High-tech features like advanced hand controls are in high demand, as are others, according to mobility expert Hannah Goldbeck.
Some features that are really popular and sort of must-have on these vehicles. One, of course, the automatic ramp. You push the button, it deploys. No bending, no lifting. It's a much faster process. A second feature that a lot of these vehicles have is called a kneel system, and it actually compresses the rear suspension of the vehicle, and it takes that ramp angle and lowers it down, makes it less steep. If you're pushing someone in a wheelchair, it's easier. If you're wheeling yourself in a wheelchair, it's easier. And customers really want the wheelchair straps that are self-tensioning. They're called auto retractors. You loop them onto the frame of the wheelchair and they self-tension. No cranking, no ratcheting. You loop it and go. It's very easy.
And what's the benefit of that?
The benefit of that is that it reduces the time to get situated in the vehicle. You can be out the door and in the vehicle and on the road in about 2 minutes. Previously, it might take 5 up to 10 minutes to get situated.
Decades ago, everything was manual, so getting behind the wheel of an adaptive vehicle took longer, was often complicated, and on top of that, you needed someone with you most of the time. Next generation technology has certainly transformed the entire mobility industry. And it's important for people to realize the OEMs don't install this equipment themselves. They work with conversion manufacturers to transform the vehicle.
Exactly. They work with companies like Bronability and Vantage Mobility, who take the chassis direct from, say, Toyota, and they have their own manufacturing plants. They strip the inside, retaining all those original components to the side. They build a brand new floor. They lengthen the AC lines. They modify the door openings, and then they add all the accessible equipment and put everything back as close to OEM as possible with all the new features.
A very lengthy and thorough process.
It is. It can take 4 to 6 weeks for each vehicle, depending on how the timeline is moving at the company.
There's no denying that tech is life-changing, but it can be expensive. However, loans and grants are available, which is especially helpful since health insurance doesn't cover these types of vehicles or any of its equipment. While it is pricey, many agree the freedom is priceless.
People within the disability community, they just want to make a contribution. They just want to live their lives, right? They don't want to be a burden to anybody else if they can. They want to have independence. They want to contribute to this life, just like everybody else. This vehicle allows me to do that, and I appreciate that opportunity very much.
For most of us, servicing our car's brakes is a bridge too far. But with the right tools and a little patience, it's a very manageable do-it-yourselfer. For the proper know-how, let's stop and listen to Logan McCombs on MotorWeek's Your Drive.
Replacing your own brake pads, rotors, or even calipers is a great way to save some dollars and keep your car safe on the road. You can do this job right in your garage or driveway in just a couple of hours. There are plenty of tutorial videos online showing the specific processes for most vehicles. So take a few minutes and watch before you wrench. Here's a few tips to get you started. Always support your car with 1 or more jack stands. Never work under a vehicle that is supported by only a jack. In most cases, there are 2 bolts holding the caliper to the bracket. Remove these and hang the caliper by hooking it to a spring or suspension piece so you don't put stress on your brake line and have to replace that too. Your new brake pads may come with clips and shims or wear indicators that need to be installed into the carrier bracket. Take note of how these pieces are oriented or take pictures for reference and install these in the same position as the old ones. Coat the shims and the back of the pads and anywhere that there is metal to metal contact, lightly with brake caliper lubricant. Before the caliper will fit over the new thicker brake pads, you'll need to retract the pistons into the caliper by forcing the brake fluid back into the lines and master cylinder. There are tools just like this one to make that job much easier for you. Or you can use a block of wood and a C-clamp too. Be sure to remove the caliper slide pins, just like that, and re-grease them before you put them back into the brake caliper bracket. Now, you always want to make sure that the rubber boots are completely clean so that you want to keep out all your dirt and water so they don't rust. If you're replacing the rotor or caliper, apply anti-seize to the hub surface where it meets the rotor. Don't go crazy with this stuff. A little goes a long way and it will make a mess when, not if, you get any on you. Be sure to clean the surface of the rotor on both sides with brake clean to remove the factory protective coating. When it's time to reassemble the bracket and caliper bolts, they will need to be torqued to a specific number of foot-pounds. A quick online search should give you the right specs, or check your owner's manual. If you don't own a torque wrench, many auto parts stores have loaner tools available for a nominal fee. Dare to DIY. And if you have any questions or comments, reach out to us right here at MotorWeek.
This Pontiac Aztec certainly doesn't look like anything else on the road. This sport recreation vehicle may be related to the Montana minivan and Grand Prix sedan, but the Aztec takes Pontiac's already aggressive look to a whole new abstract level. And with the rear seats flipped and folded, it's larger than any compact or midsize SUV. It sports cargo nets, 12 tie-downs, or this optional slide-out cargo tray with handy compartments fit for grocery bags and hiking boots. There's lots of small item storage, including the GT's removable console cooler and carry-away front door utility packs. 10-speaker, 190-watt Pioneer speaker system designed for good sound inside and outside with these rear controls and speaker units.
Our road test team is taking 5. That's just enough time for a quick spin.
This 2026 Subaru Uncharted is plotting a course onto dealer lots now, but we had an early preview during a California first drive, Laguna Beach if you want to reference the map. Electric motoring isn't exactly uncharted territory for Subaru, which partnered with Toyota a few years back to make the Solterra. Undercutting the Solterra in size, this Uncharted and the upcoming even larger Trailseeker, which will feature soon, both make up the brand's second round of EV options, still leveraging that Toyota partnership. In a very un-Subaru move, the entry-level premium is front-wheel drive only, using a single electric motor for 221 horsepower. But the perk here is the most range of the trio at 308 miles. The Sport and GT come with dual-motor all-wheel drive, netting 338 horsepower and seeing 285 and 273 miles of range, respectively. All grades are powered by a 74.7 kilowatt-hour battery, rechargeable through a standard NACS port. Our GT demo rode on some pretty fly 20-inch wheels, but they weren't the only thing worth raving about.
A few things really impressed me about the 2026 Subaru Uncharted. It's an everyday EV, and what I mean by that is it does 0 to 60 in 4.7 seconds. It's not an electric powerhouse, scary fast vehicle. It's that perfect pocket of power for everyday use. I know you're not supposed to call it a gas pedal because it's an EV, potentiometer, whatever you want to call it. It has just a little bit of nuance built into it where it lets you take off from a light just like a gas vehicle. It's not super jarring. Visibility is incredible, seats are super comfortable, and there's plenty of adjustment in it. It's impossible to get a bad seat in this vehicle.
The front fascia's 6-star logo may be illuminated, but there's no need to bust out the sextant. Navigation is done through the 14-inch infotainment screen. This display comes mounted in all trims, joined by a 7-inch gauge unit. The 2026 Subaru Uncharted starts around $36,000 with destination, working up to $45,000 for a top-level GT. We'll feature it, the upcoming Trailseeker, and more quick spins soon.
If you own a European car, you have this man to thank. Max Hoffman, $1 Million Middleman. That's the name of this must-read by Miles Kornblatt. It was Max Hoffman who brought brands such as Alfa Romeo, BMW, Fiat, Jaguar, Mercedes-Benz, and Porsche to the U.S. through his New York dealership, which quickly grew to include multiple showrooms around the city and eventually led to nationwide distribution to a rapidly growing number of import dealerships all across the country. But Hoffman was far more than just a salesman, helping many of those brands along the way to develop cars that he knew would be hits here in the American market. In our increasingly AI-generated world, there's also been a renewed search for authenticity. Well, when it comes to the SUV world, it doesn't get much more authentic than the Land Rover Defender. This wandering wildebeest has arguably conquered more territory than any other SUV in the world. So let's find out how the latest Defender takes to the mean streets of the Mid-Atlantic. It says a lot about the Land Rover Defender that it has been around since the 1980s and is only now in its second generation. Its first gen lasted for more than 3 decades, and then after taking a few years of sabbatical in the 2010s, this globetrotter was reborn for 2020. And much like the original, these last 6 years have seen relatively minor evolutions rather than major revolutions, bringing us to our 2026 Defender 110. You can trace its basic shape all the way back to the original Land Rover of the 1940s, but the Defender really came into its own in the 1990s. In our road test of this 93 Model 90, we didn't find any leather or a CD player inside, but we did conquer all the rugged terrain we could find in western Wyoming. These 90s Defenders are bringing some big bucks today regardless of condition. Today's Defender is available in 3 sizes, a 2-door 90, a 3-row 130, and this Goldilocks 110 in between. Detail changes have happened since it arrived in 2020, mostly new headlights and minor material and color adjustments for the front fascia and patterns used for the hood and fender vents. In back, the LED taillights are now flush mounted. It all looks great, but the amount of plastic makes us wonder just how much abuse these things are really built to take if used as the Land Rover gods originally intended. Going anywhere and doing anything is what these square-bodied brutes have always been about. And indeed, they remain as capable as ever, with plenty of ground clearance and suspension travel, plus terrain response too, making the hard decisions for you regarding traction management. Originally launched with just a 2-liter Turbo 4 and 3-liter i6 as your only engine options here in the U.S., this supercharged 5-liter V8 joined the lineup in 2022. And if you've never driven one with the V8, you probably wouldn't think you need it, as both the 4 and the 6 are perfectly adequate. But once you've experienced it, it's the only way you'll want your Defender. This P500 version's 493 horsepower and 450 pound-feet of torque are a bit shy of the P525's 518 horsepower, but man, is it beautiful to listen to. Trust us when we say you'll be looking for any opportunity to go wide open throttle to hear this thing bark through the sweet-looking quad exhaust setup. While doing just that at our test track, we ripped to 60 in just 5 seconds. There was a huge amount of weight transfer off the line, with plenty of grip to start putting that power down. Gear changes in the 8-speed automatic were forceful without being abrupt, keeping power flowing consistently. But alas, aerodynamic efficiency is not a strong point here, so despite the constant feeling of unrelenting power the whole way down the track, the quarter mile took 13.3 seconds to complete, still finishing at 106 miles per hour. Considering this vehicle's priorities are not pavement related, it handled our cone course with relative ease. Dynamic mode noticeably firmed up the suspension, and the amount of feel through the steering wheel keeps you well connected with what's going on. Braking performance was more than adequate, bringing us to smooth and stable stops from 60 in just 108 feet, with a minor bit of fade only showing up after multiple runs. Even if being on safari is not part of your lexicon, you'll find much to like about the interior of the latest Defender. It's a far cry from over-the-top Range Rover opulence, but we feel it's the perfect take on rugged luxury. We felt right at home. The biggest change to happen inside since 2020 is the infotainment screen's significant growth spurt that required it to move out from its in-dash location to current presentation well in front of the dash. Going the V8 route is obviously a pricey proposition, adding $23,900 to our X-Dynamic SE's $77,050 starting point. But the frugal-minded can get into a perfectly respectable Defender 110 for as little as $65,350. It's hard to say whether this second-gen Defender will attain the legendary status of the original, but it is ruggedly modern, easily manages everything it was built to do and more, and does it all better and more beautifully than ever. Well, that's our show. I hope you enjoyed it. Now, for more MotorWeek, including daily news updates, podcasts, and even complete episodes, cruise on over to pbs.org/MotorWeek. And I hope you'll join us next time for the latest on a luxury three-row, the Infiniti QX60. Then we'll go family taxi in the updated Honda Pilot. Till then, I'm John Davis. We'll see you right here on MotorWeek.
To learn more about MotorWeek, television's original automotive magazine, visit pbs.org/MotorWeek.
The MotorWeek app, which includes our latest reviews and feature stories, is now available for mobile devices.
MotorWeek is proudly sponsored by Auto Value and Bumper to Bumper, a nationwide network of stores and shops providing major brand auto and truck parts and service from coast to coast and in your local community. Service is the difference. We get it. Learn more at autovalue.com and bumpertobumper.com.
We're Tire Rack. We test tires and share our results. We stock over 1 million tires. We offer multiple installation options. We do this because we believe tires matter. TireRack.com.
This program was produced by Maryland Public Television, which is solely responsible for its content.